If you are wavering in your faith, I want to encourage you to have faith and trust in God and that you don't have to waver. All right. I know sometimes life can be lifing and you question, like, God, where are you and how are things going to happen? Like, I just don't understand. I'm trying to have faith, but my faith is wavering. All right. I keep going back and forth. And it's literally like, God, what's up? What's good? So I was reading Romans chapter 4, verses 20 and 21 this morning. Starting with verse 20, it says that Abraham never had wavering faith. In fact, his faith grew stronger. And because his faith grew stronger, he was able to bring more glory to God. When you then take a look at verse 21, it says that Abraham was fully convinced that God could do whatever he promises. All right, key phrase there. He was fully convinced. I'm here to remind you right now that whatever it is that is on your mind, your heart's desires, your dreams, your visions, and you are genuinely just waiting on God to do this thing for you, believe that it's already done. I really had a deep dive this morning into how faith really works. And it's interesting because I was all up in Romans and I was reading, and God really emphasizes how faith makes us righteous. All right. It's not just the law alone. In fact, the law is there and it shows us how sinful we are. But it's all about our faith. Our faith is what makes us righteous. And it's interesting because sometimes we try to belittle faith. And I know sometimes when we hear the saying, oh, just have faith, oh, just trust in God, we like to belittle that and we devalue it because we think it's just another saying. And we let our reality try to stop us from really seeing what God can and will in fact do for our lives. One thing that I always teach to the women in my community, I'm always like, you need to learn to have delusional faith. All right. Delusional faith is a beautiful thing to have. And let me tell you something. It's interesting because I can be a very private person at heart. No matter how close you might be to me, there are some things where like I will privately handle. And of course, it ain't private to God. God always knows. But it's interesting because when I hear people come to me and they tell me their problems, I'm like, girl, you ain't got no idea. Not to belittle their problems, but I'm always like, you have no idea what I got going on, but I don't look like what I've been through because I serve a Jehovah Jireh, all right? The Jehovah Jireh, the Elohim. I serve a God who works in miraculous ways. And so I was just mentioning this to someone last night, and I was like, you have to start like in those moments where you kind of forget, about having faith in God and you start losing trust in God. Start thinking about what he's done in the past, all right? And literally just come up with a list of different things. Like, okay, I remember that one time when I didn't know this was going to happen, when I didn't know if this was going to get paid, when I didn't know that I was going to be alone or this, that, and the third, when I didn't know if that job was going to come, but God pulled through for me. Start jotting these things down because the beauty of it is too, you get to be reminded, even on paper, like, wow, I wrote this out and I saw God make it come to pass. I was reflecting not too long ago on a list of things that God had did in my life. And one of the things was I was like, God, I want to move to Charlotte, North Carolina. When I graduate school, I want to have the job of my dreams, this, that, and the third. So he put me in Charlotte, but the first job I had, I hated it, right? But because I was such a faith-filled girl, all right, I was determined. One thing about me, I will say, and I say this all the time, God blessed me with the gift of determination. So when I put my mind to something, oh, baby, I'm going to make sure it happens, okay, through Christ. So anyway, fast forward, I remember quitting that job and I took a leap of faith. I ain't have no backup plan or nothing, and the bills were still due. And I said, God, you know my heart's desires. And if in your will to bless me with another job, please make sure you give me the one that is for me, And in fact, 3 weeks later, he did just that. But, that's just a testimony of mine. But I say all that to say, like, God is a miracle working God. And even since then, to even go back to that testimony, guess what? I have since lost that job. It's been about 2 years now, but he's still providing. Like, I do contract work now for my marketing, but I say all that to say, like, I have had faith. I've had full faith, y'all, and it ain't always easy because let's talk about it. To have faith when you don't know what your reality is going to look like, all right, today, tomorrow, 10 years from now, it can be a little hard. But let me tell you something. When you keep those dreams in the forefront of you. I said a prayer this morning and I said, God, I rebuke and I bind. I come against any and all thoughts that are not of you. Anything that is not the promises that you have for my life, get them off of my mind. Get them out of my heart. Get them out of my way, out of my environment, like literally make me clean, make room to only show me the promises that you have for my life. So I just want to encourage you today, don't lose faith, don't lose sight of just who God is. And He never changes. Trust me, He knows how your life is going to be. All right, from beginning to middle to end, He already knows. You don't. It's new to you, but don't let that stop you from trusting Him and knowing that He's going to pull through. Have faith just like Abraham.